Today at Her Sport, we are joined by Irish rugby player Anna Caplice. We're very excited to have you on. You are busy getting ready for the Six Nations and all things rugby, but you've also been doing a lot of singing. What's the story with the song coming out in St. Patrick's Day?
Oh goodness, yeah. That'll be a surprise. But no, I was asked to do. I'm an athlete rep for Women's Sports Alliance, and they asked me to do a song for Paddy's Day, and yeah. I hopefully
a big secret.
yeah. No, I won't
Brilliant.
I won't give it away. I'm not starting building it up too much now. It's just
yeah. Be sure to tag us anyways. We're certainly looking forward to it.
Oh, I will.
A lot of people have tuned into all the singing and dancing that's going on, so it's something you obviously enjoy as well.
You might as well have a bit of crack.
Exactly. It's been a while getting back to the game. How's everything going in prep for the Six Nations?
Oh yeah, it's certainly been a roller coaster and a long time coming. I feel very hopeful, like looking out the window now and seeing like the blue sky, like you feel like, okay, coming into Six Nations, usually it's grey and it's rainy and things like that. So it's going to be nice, playing the Six Nations in a bit of a springtime summer window. Yeah, a lot of training, a lot of ups and downs and postponements and cancellations and changing of kind of preparation and when you want your body to peak and when you want your team performance to peak. So that's been, a challenge to manage, but nothing that we can't do. And, to have, fixtures in now for the Six Nations and to have those, coming on like a train, we got a bit of unexpected time off, the last couple of weekends where we should have been playing and preparing for a World Cup qualifier. So that means that, bodies are a bit refreshed and a bit of time off and a bit of switch off time, which was important, especially with the disappointment of the announcement of the postponement of the World Cup. We are, ready to go again. Our focus hasn't changed. We know, now, like, even stronger than ever want, those big performances in the Six Nations. And we feel like they're really coming because the camps have been, just killer. Like they've been absolutely trying to kill us inside in camp, and we've all been trying to kill each other in a really good way, getting the best out of each other, really competitive because, selection has been on the horizon for so long now, because we've been building towards a tournament that's been postponed, building towards a game that's been postponed, building towards something else that's been postponed. So the competitive nature that builds naturally in a camp, approaching selection has been there for quite a while now, and it's only made each of us better and hungrier. And it's going to make and that's not just going to be in the Irish camp, like that's going to be across every team in the Six Nations. They've gone through just as much as we have, and they're going to be just as hungry as we are. So it's going to make for an epic tournament.
We're certainly all looking forward to it when it kicks off. In relation to the training, it seems like it's all good fun. Are you the best crack on the team, or who else is a bit of fun?
No, actually, I would definitely be voted one of the worst crack because I'd be driving people mad. Actually, myself and Eva McDermott, who plays in the second row, we're always wearing our bucket hats to training, which people have probably seen on our Instagrams. And whenever we always wear it for lunch. And whenever everyone sees us, they're like, oh God, there goes the two with their bucket hats again. But we actually know that they're really jealous of us. So
yeah. I know it's good to have a bit of fun.
It is. You need that, and you need, characters to shine through. Like there's some wicked characters in there, like Lindsay Peat is always, got a booming energy about her, and Hannah O'Connor is hilarious, and there's so many like just different accents and different characters and different pranksters and people that are kind of unassumingly kind of funny and good crack that'd be spreading rumors about people. Things like that, but like we love each other, and that brings out the best of us and allows us to be ourselves and just enjoy being with each other and enjoy being in camp.
Brilliant. Obviously, you're all working very hard to play top level sport, but it's not always rosy in the garden, we'll say. You've obviously spoken about people saying that nobody cares about women's sport, when the games have been postponed and that type of thing. So how does that impact the athletes?
Often it doesn't. Often we know that they have no understanding of what we do and how we do what we do, and the fact that we work full time alongside training and playing, and we know that a lot of people don't understand it. So often it doesn't affect us and we just get on with it, but there are some times that it just irks you a little bit, and I suppose it's, it is certainly to do with sport, but then we'll all have seen this week, the kind of bigger discussion around just women in society and how women in society are perceived and treated and things like that. So there's an element of that to it as well. So it's important to address that within the rugby community, and use that community to send out those messages of understanding for women before rugby even comes into it. So how it impacts athletes, it can ebb away at you, I suppose. And I think that probably one of the reasons I was, invited to take part in this Tackle Your Feelings campaign is because of the tweet that I sent in January, which was off the back of a social media post that Sky Sports posted about the post-moment of the Women's Six Nations, that a lot of people had written underneath that they didn't care. And why are you posting this? I don't care. And when there are so many comments like that, one after the other, and people were just jumping on the bandwagon then to try and get a laugh or to feel better about themselves by putting someone else down. It kind of got to me, and it got to a few of my teammates, and a lot of girls across, there was Welsh girls and English and French that all kind of responded back to this. And I tweeted that you wouldn't comment like this if you understood what it takes. And actually the response from the tweet that I got was massive, because probably people don't know what it takes or what it means to play in the Six Nations and how much sacrifice you make and how difficult it is. So I think the reason that it did, it gets so many likes is because people were like, oh, okay, kind of surprised by it. So, it's up to us as athletes to let people know, like, this is how hard we work and this is what it means to me. And by you saying you don't care or putting out the message that you shouldn't care about this means that what I do in my life and what I've achieved and everything that I work for and every decision I make and everything I do, that it's like invalidating that somehow. So it's important to shut that down and to put it out there what it actually means to play in a Women's Six Nations or a Six Nations full stop, men, women, whatever. So that tweets like that, and me or my teammates using our platforms to put it out there, what we do and how we achieve it, is important, because it allows people to then bring that discussion further and use that as ammo if they ever want to shut someone down that they would like to disagree with, or just bring the discussion forward. So hopefully athletes, we all have a free platform, we all have social media and this instant platform and for marketing or sending your message. So hopefully people who read the messages that we put out, it just allows the discussion to grow and empower people to shut that down and have a really strong argument when they when they encounter a discussion like this.
Yeah, and in relation to that, I know obviously the Tackle Your Feelings animation video was released on International Women's Day, and it's something that we certainly found very compelling, and to think that the comments that were actually made through this video were actually real comments and real tweets, real comments under different social media posts. Talk to me about being a female rugby player and seeing or hearing these comments that might be about size or looks or other things that are totally irrelevant to actually playing the game.
It's really hard watching, isn't it, the cartoons? It made me feel uncomfortable watching them, but that's good, because that's the point. Like, that's what we want to achieve. To hear it as an athlete, it's just so frustrating because, you know, how I look or who I am has really nothing to do with how I perform. You know, and often when I see, for example, you'll have seen that the Premiership releases a Try of the Week competition every week in the UK after the Allianz Premiership rounds of rugby every weekend. And often you'll see on Twitter or whatever that there are people commenting saying, oh, that was just really poor defence, or what a rubbish pass, or poor effort at a tackle there, or you know, like you say, is she really fit enough to play in the Premiership, and comments on that's all very like you know, focusing on the negatives. Whereas if you have a Try of the Week from a men's tournament, you have people very much, oh, look at him go, and look at you know, focusing on everything positive that was done as opposed to anything negative. Like, you very, very seldom see, you know, when an excellent try is scored in men's rugby, very seldom you'll have someone respond and say, oh, well, the defence was poor, and give no credit to the attack or no credit to the guy who scored. But actually that happens in women's rugby a lot. And I think that, you know, these conversations like we're having and putting it out there will hopefully help that along and just diminish those kind of negative reactions. Because I do think that, for example, if we look at that Sky Sports example where, you know, the you know, people started commenting, you know, I don't care underneath, people are kind of surprised when they see women appear on their timeline playing sport. That element of surprise just has to go. We have to make it more normal that people just see women achieving on the field, and, you know, and it becomes normal, and, like, you know, scroll past it if you want, but you're not shocked to see it. And I think it's that shock element that people are like, I don't want this on my timeline, but actually it should be on your timeline, and, you know, scroll past if you want, or like it if you want, or don't say anything or whatever. But let's take another example. Like, so at the weekend, Tyke Furlong sidestep. I must have seen that video now like 27 times already. This little sidestep that Tyke Furlong did. Is it from Wexford? Is it like with the Wexford step? Or I heard it to the Titanic music. I've seen it to like all these remixes with, like, so, you know, great for him. He looks brilliant out of that. Like, he, you know, it's an excellent bit of play, and it's been shared millions of times since. That stuff happens every weekend in the Premiership, in the women's Premiership, you know, in any women's league. But we don't have, you know, our games are live streamed, but if they were on the telly, you'd have the high angle, the low angle, the slow-mo, the in reverse, the going again. Like, how good does Tyke Furlong look from all the different angles, you know, of that sidestep? So if we were able to get like high quality footage of our, you know, any of our prop forwards that do this in the Premiership, we'd have just as much content, you know, flowing through your social media feed. So, you know, you're scrolling through, and actually you'll see a woman doing exactly what Tyke Furlong did, and actually you might be less surprised by it and more focused on what she achieved. You know, less about the fact that, oh God, there's a woman playing sport on my timeline, and more about, oh, cool, she did that really well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, you know, in relation to the social media aspect of things, do you think that social media is amplifying some of the negativity, in that, you know, obviously people are so, you know, active online, but they may not actually say something like that to your face in the way that they would on social media?
I do think that it amplifies the negativity, and, you know, because we're all sitting at home, you know, if the Aviva was filled with, you know, 80,000 people at the weekend, that would be people having conversations, you know, with people around them about what's happening at the pitch, but it's people sitting at home on their own that are looking for someone to connect with about, you know, what's happened, and tagging a player. Like, if you remember a few years ago, my teammate Leah Lyons, her parents were at the game, and someone made a comment to the person they were sitting next to about Leah's physical shape, and her family just happened to overhear it. And I feel like that would happen a lot at you know, at the women's game, at some of the women's games where the crowd is smaller, you could probably get away with it. Like the things that people are saying online now about the men, you know, and tagging James Lowe or tagging whoever, they're probably saying that in the stadium anyway, but it's a much smaller chance of James Lowe's family hearing that. Whereas at the women's game, it just so happened that Leah's mum overheard this. And that actually, you know, Leah took the positives off that and she really spun it into something positive and made it in, like, we all very much stood by her and we're like, you know, he can say whatever he wants. You're an international rugby player who's just played out of skin. And if you're tagging someone, it would be the equivalent of that man in the crowd tapping Leah's mother on her shoulder and saying, your daughter is this. And he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that in a million years. Yet he, or maybe not this guy, maybe he's since learned his lesson, but maybe someone else has now, could have, you know, tagged her and said that. But in real life, you'd never do it. It's bullying. It's not nice. It's irresponsible. And hopefully, I do think that this Tackle Your Feelings campaign and these cartoons kind of highlight how bizarre it would be that you could speak like it, you know, around people, like what you're saying online, would you really say it to people around you in person? Probably not.
Yeah, and I think like what you're saying, in the piece that's done around Furlong and in the success, like there's opportunity where social media can really be positive and, you know, amplify someone's performance, but in some cases, particularly in women's sport, you can see the negative aspect of it. And like what you're saying, you actually can just continue to scroll past it. You don't actually need to actively you know, tap into a post, go and search somebody, tag them, make these negative comments. And what you're saying is like a lot of it is negativity around women's sport, where if people actually understand that there are people at the end of, you know, these phones that are getting these messages, like they might think twice about it. So tell us a little bit about the campaign and how important it is to hit home this message, that people understand that it's actually real people that we're talking about.
I think that the campaign is very proactively trying to put out there that this kind of way of speaking is unacceptable, first of all, and then, you know, tagging players and using players' names makes it worse again. So, you know, Tackle Your Feelings is all about like empowering people to, you know, feel like they can stand up for themselves or stand up for someone else, and that's okay. Like you can shoot down someone who's saying something nasty, but actually it makes that argument stronger than if you've got to come back to it because you've listened to the chat that you and I are having here now, you know, and you can the campaign just is enforcing these messages of, yes, that's unacceptable, but also then messages of how do we combat it and how do we empower people to shoot that down and to feel confident that shooting it down is the right thing to do, and that actually you deserve more respect for standing up for someone and knowing about the game and knowing about that person and using that then to be like, actually, sorry, you cannot say that about that player because this is how hard they train and this is what they've achieved. And even if you didn't know that about the person, still being able to say, sorry, I'm not, or what do you mean by that, or what can you explain, like is that really true, like do you know that that's actually true, and just kind of challenging people, and not in a massively confrontational way, but just in a kind of a way that the conversations can focus on the positive things that players achieve on the pitch, and if there's a hiccup or if there's something that someone, you know, hasn't done right that day or has had a bit of a nightmare in some aspect of their game, that's okay too, and that's a human thing, and that they don't deserve to be tagged, called out, and this big bandwagon kind of army of the mob all shouting about no one cares, that's rubbish, she's useless, she's this, you know, whatever.
Yeah. You've mentioned obviously the work that goes into it. So tell me a little bit about, like, obviously people are working or studying and playing rugby. Like, explain to people how difficult it is to be an international rugby player and be working or studying at the same time.
It's been a real kind of in and out for me, because when I've been based in Ireland, in Ireland, all the trainings take place in the evening or at the weekends or in the morning. So actually you could have a week where you're in the gym at 7, you train and shower, get ready for work, go to work, have a full day at work. So you can imagine, just a normal day at work where you get up, get your breakfast, go, you come home, you are wrecked. And all you want to do is sit on the couch and put your feet up. No, that is the time for your next training session. So you might not get home till half night. You're rushing to get some dinner into you to go to bed to get a full night's sleep for recovery. So that could be a typical day. And then that brings you right up to the weekend where you might have only had one evening off. And so on that evening off, you've been meal planning or something, So with Harlequins, I've been working part-time. So I decided personally that I would, just work part-time so I could focus more on my playing career. So I'm, working in the mornings, training in the afternoons. So then I get a bit of time to put my feet up in the evenings because...
And sing and write songs and enjoy yourself.
Exactly. That's so important. The time to switch off. I always feel so envious of the men. They're playing throughout the day and then they get to go home in the evenings, and put their feet up and be with their dogs and kids and all the men players. They all have dogs. I don't know. I would not be able to keep a dog because I'm never home. Training in the evenings, training in the mornings, working throughout the day. It's different for me at the moment because I'm kind of between jobs. I've just moved back to Ireland and, looking for something new. So I'm actually kind of trying to enjoy this time that I've got back a little bit just from being, from relocating and things like that. So it's not the usual. I've got, all this time this morning to speak to you, and that's usually not the case. That's usually not there. So I'm trying to enjoy that at the moment. And but that means that I have to kind of really actively be, looking to start a job soon because, it's me out of work at the moment, So that's all these spinning plates to manage. And when it comes to everyone on the team, anyone who's in full-time work or study, that's how their week looks like: full days, full evenings, one or two either mornings or evenings off a week, and then maybe either a Saturday or Sunday off if you're playing a game. But if we're in camp, we're in from Friday evening to Sunday evening. So time off, everyone is watching all these series on Netflix. My friends who don't play rugby, or my family, anything to suggest on Netflix. I'm no, I don't watch any Netflix at all. Getting into a series just is almost unthinkable because there's just so little time.
You did manage to squeeze some time in to watch the hockey at the weekend.
Yes, I loved it. It was so good. I know nothing about hockey. I'm from Mallow, so it's not really a hockey town, but so good to see it on the telly. And they got a brilliant win. And I was delighted to be sitting on my couch watching women play sport on the telly like that. It was brilliant.
Yeah, and you're definitely passionate about women in sport, and you're always sharing her sport when you can and always keeping us up to date with other things that are going on. You've recently started the Gainline podcast. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so myself and Lucy Lomax. Lucy is a journalist from the UK that I got to know, playing in the Premiership over the years. She's been covering women's rugby for a good few years now. So she reached out to me and she was like, let's, co-host a podcast. And I was like, yeah, definitely, there's an opening for that with, Irish women's rugby. And there's a few podcasts popping up here and there, to cover the women's game. So, it's good to see. And myself and Lucy kind of jumped on that and we're like, let's put out news, and let's if you looked for a men's rugby podcast, you wouldn't know what to pick because there's so many of them, and so much to choose from. So we kind of want to be part of that market for the women's game, and we've chatted to a lot of different some of the Irish players, Welsh players. We have a few more English girls, Scottish girls lined up, just to just to chat women's rugby. And again, like, you know, like we've been saying, put it out there what we do so that people understand what we do. And then another part of it is like to reach out to, at the moment, like from an Irish perspective, reach out to all the girls who, you know, usually would be playing rugby around this time, but are now like training at home on their own, or, you know, just doing Zoom sessions or things like that. Like, we want to know like how people are and how young girls are like keeping in touch with rugby. And that's been really cool, like to like, you know, whatever about us, like the young girls that have been playing rugby that have had that all stopped, like they're absolutely dying to get back into it. And like, we've been reaching out to them to chat to them about how they've been doing it. And that's been really, really cool.
That's brilliant. And certainly I know you're lucky to be able to play at the moment, and everybody's certainly envious. And I think it's really nice and really important that you guys are, you know, talking to people that aren't able to play and really trying to keep them interested, because obviously it's important for the development of, you know, the team and national teams over the next few years. There was a bit of rigmarole in relation to jerseys with Canterbury, obviously, within the last year. How important is it that relevant businesses and organisations work with athletes and women in sport to promote women in sport?
It's massive. You know, that was an interesting one around the time of the Canterbury jersey launch. And it, you know, Canterbury had, you know, their plan was to, you know, use the men players and then use the women players a couple of months down the line, but when they got a chance kind of between COVID times. But actually, before they had a chance to do that, everyone responded saying that's not good enough. So that was, you know, although they had planned, Canterbury had planned to use, you know, some of the women's players to launch the jerseys, there was an oversight on their part to misread that people would be offended that it wasn't launched at the same time. And people were right to feel that way. And Canterbury, you know, they came out and apologized, and they were like, you know, it wasn't good enough from us, and we won't make that mistake again. And that was really nice to hear from them, to, you know, hands up, say, yeah, you know, we acknowledge this, and we'll do better in the future. That's what we want to hear. And like, you know, you might hear that from a lot of businesses, but where's the action? Like, where do we, what are we actually going to see now, and where's your actual commitment? So for businesses and you know, people launching, or people who want to be involved with women's rugby, you know, and we would have seen a lot of it last International Women's Day, like, yes, we support women, but show us how. Yeah. How are you doing it? Like, show us, put women on your Instagram, which then feeds into the whole like element of people not being shocked when they see, you know, a woman playing sport on their timeline. So be part of that. Don't just condone, you know, people talking, you know, poorly about women in sport. Like, be part of the action. Like, you know, be brave enough to like lead the way. I'd love to, you know, like pick out and say to you, like, actually these guys really have it down. They've got it really right. Like, there's nobody, and maybe there is, and I'm happy to be challenged on this, but there's nobody for me that springs to mind right now that's like a business or a kind of a, you know, male, female sport brand, whether that's clothing or otherwise, that's like, yes, they've got it right, use them as an example. I'm sure there are some that are doing it very well, but who's going to be brave enough to like get it right and lead the way? And like, so if I can turn around to, you know, Canterbury this time last year and say like, look at how they've done it, you can do it this way, or you should do it this way, and then Canterbury might not have had that oversight and not have underestimated how upset people would have been. So you know, we just want to see more and more people acknowledging it, kind of like Canterbury did, and like, okay, hands up, we haven't done enough, so let's put a foot forward. And we might not always get it right, but you know, don't be afraid. Like, annoyingly and sadly, and I'm not going to like throw anyone under the bus here, but there are accounts, you know, businesses that I might purchase a lot of things from, or even like platforms where I get a lot of my rugby info, you know, men's, women's, whatever, that is just flooded with male player, and that's not good enough. It's got to change. Like, it's an easy thing. It's an easy thing to do. We have put out pictures of your female players, but the social media people, they're just not thinking that way yet. But that's too late now. That's got to change. Like we've got to challenge those accounts, and write to them. I do sometimes. I write to some accounts, and I'm like, hey, it's been however many posts since you last posted a woman. Change that.
Definitely let us know, and we'll help where we can. Anyways, it's all about trying to work together in changing what's going on in women's sport. But definitely. I think in relation to the businesses and organizations piece, like I think in some sports there are organizations that are out there and businesses that are out there that are trying to change things for women and men in sport and that equality piece. But like you're saying, like I am actually personally haven't really been impressed by anything that's going on in rugby. Like you're saying, that there's someone that's out there that you're going, oh, actually, yes, they've got it. I think there's almost like sometimes businesses are a little bit cautious about blowing their own trumpet about if they are doing it. Like there's a few organizations that are doing a bit, but they're not actually putting it out there enough that they're then becoming really recognized. Like you're saying, like that's something you'd say, oh, actually they have hit the nail on the head. Look, there's a lot of work to be done, and we could obviously talk about this for a long time, but the game's coming up soon, so there's going to be a new format. So you're excited to get back?
The new format is like, obviously it's a bit different for us, but with COVID and all the challenges we've been faced with this year, like we'll take it. We'll play any format that's going, and we want to play, as long as we're able to revert to our full tournament in the future. Like that would be the ideal scenario, to go back to how we used to play the tournament. But whether it's at a different window to the men's or not, who knows? I'm really excited to see how this will work, how the momentum from the men's Six Nations will carry into the women's Six Nations. So we're really excited, and just bring on like that sound of the ref's whistle to like signal kick off. Like that's going to be like music to our ears for sure.
Brilliant. Well, we're wishing you all the best of luck as it kicks off. We're certainly looking forward to it and sharing as much as we can about it. So best of luck to you and the team, and thanks enough for taking the time to chat to us.
Thanks so much, Niamh.
Thanks, guys.